Imagine the moment when the darkness of night gently gives way to the first rays of morning. It's a natural, silent process, yet full of meaning. The sky transforms, colors bloom, and the world slowly awakens from its rest. So too is the call of our spirit to awaken, a whispered invitation amidst the rush of daily life, inviting us to open our eyes to something far greater than what we perceive every day. Within each of us exists a presence that goes beyond the surface, a higher self that is always there, waiting for our attention. This higher self is the purest and wisest essence of our being, a beacon that even in moments of storm remains lit, emitting its serene light. It doesn't shout or force its voice upon us. Instead, it waits patiently, like the sun behind the clouds, waiting for the opportunity to shine when we are ready to see it. This awakening isn't something imposed or forced from the outside. It's a subtle call that arises when we start seeking answers, when we allow ourselves to question what is truly important and who we are beyond the roles we play. It's a search for meaning, for a purpose that transcends mere existence. And in that moment, we realize that the higher self is our guide, an infinite source of wisdom and love that has always been present, just waiting to be recognized. The beauty of spiritual awakening lies in its simplicity. It doesn't require a grand event or a miraculous sign. Often, it begins with something small, a moment of silence in which we sense the vastness of our own being, or the feeling of a gentle breeze that, in some inexplicable way, touches the soul. It is in this quietness, in noticing the small things, that awakening begins to happen. Like the first lights of dawn, it gradually makes itself known, bringing clarity, renewal, and a new way of seeing the world. This awakening is a return home, a recognition that everything we need for our journey is already within us. The higher self is not external, nor something that needs to be conquered, but something that needs to be embraced. Each of us carries this divine spark, and the key to accessing it is intention. The intention to listen, to feel, and to open ourselves to this greater part of who we are. Can you hear this call? Not with your ears, but with your heart, with that deep and true place within yourself that knows your true essence. All we need is the willingness to stop and listen. Every morning, every dawn, life invites us to be reborn, to reconnect, to discover that, like the sun that shines, we have an inner light always available, waiting for our permission to illuminate. There is a connection that goes beyond our individual understanding, something that links us to all beings, to all forms of life, and to the universe itself. This connection is more than a theory or an abstract concept. It is a truth that reveals itself when we allow ourselves to feel and experience life fully. Everything is interconnected, and our higher self is just a fraction of this vastness, a drop within an immense ocean of consciousness. Imagine the roots of an ancient tree, invisibly intertwined beneath the soil, connecting to other trees, plants, and even the earth that sustains them. Our lives are much like this. We seem to be separate individuals, each with our own stories and experiences, but beneath the surface, we share a common root, an essence that unites us and makes us part of something greater. Our higher self knows this. It reminds us that by raising our own consciousness, we are not only transforming our personal reality but also contributing to the evolution of all. In moments when we feel connected with others, we realize that we are not alone. The joy of a child, the smile of a stranger, the song of birds at dawn, all of this resonates within us, awakening something we recognize as familiar and intimate. This sense of belonging reminds us that we are not just isolated individuals trying to survive but parts of a grand tapestry woven by life. By honoring our higher essence, we are also honoring the essence of all other beings, realizing that our existence is intrinsically linked to the whole. Relationships are a powerful extension of this interconnectedness. Every person we meet along our journey, every bond we create, is an opportunity to expand this awareness, to feel our unity more deeply. When we look into someone's eyes, we are looking at a reflection of ourselves, another expression of the same universal consciousness. Our actions do not only reverberate in our own lives but echo in the collective, affecting everyone around us. By transforming our inner world, by connecting more authentically with our higher self, we are also offering the world a truer and more elevated version of ourselves. In this context, our relationships become sacred portals for our evolution. They show us that true union is not the absence of differences but the acceptance of these differences within a greater perspective of love and understanding. Interconnectedness is a call to expand our empathy, to recognize that while each of us is unique, we are all together on this grand journey of life. By embracing our higher self, we embrace the other, and together we raise the vibration of collective consciousness, contributing to a more awakened and conscious world. The relationships we cultivate, whether friendships, family, or romantic, are more than simple social connections. They are mirrors, reflections that show parts of ourselves that we often cannot see alone. Each interaction, each exchange of looks, each gesture, brings with it a hidden lesson, an opportunity to learn about our own essence, about our shadows, and about our light. When we face a conflict, the discomfort we feel is not only with the situation itself but with what it awakens within us. Every argument, every misunderstanding reveals an aspect of our personality that we need to understand or transform. It's as if the universe, in its infinite wisdom, places us in front of the exact challenge we need to face in order to grow. Relationships are, therefore, a journey of self-discovery, a way to look within and understand which parts of us still need to be illuminated. Similarly, moments of love and deep connection lead us closer to the higher self. It is in these moments of surrender, when we are able to open our hearts and see the other truly, that we approach our spiritual essence. Unconditional love, that which seeks no rewards, which imposes no conditions, is a reflection of the love of the higher self itself. This type of love teaches us to see beyond imperfections, to accept humanity in ourselves and others, and to cultivate empathy as a tool for growth. When we exercise empathy, something magical happens. The barriers that separate us from others begin to dissolve. We start to see others' pain as our own, to feel their joy as part of ours. Empathy connects us to the higher self in a unique way because it reminds us that we are all on a journey, that we are all learning and growing. When we look at the other as a mirror, we understand that what we judge in others is often a part of us that needs to be embraced. Thus, relationships are not merely a circumstance of life. They are one of the main instruments for our spiritual evolution. They help us develop qualities such as patience, compassion, forgiveness, and love. Each person who crosses our path, whether for brief moments or a lifetime, brings us a gift, a lesson, a memory, a touch of our own soul. With each interaction, we have the chance to choose how to react, to grow, to connect with our higher self, and in this way to transform our journey into an expression of love and continuous learning. In the simplest gestures of daily life, in actions that we often do on autopilot, lies a profound opportunity for connection with the higher self. Every moment is a chance to transform the mundane into sacred, to make everyday life a spiritual path. Preparing a meal, for instance, need not be just a mundane necessity. When we dedicate our attention to what we are doing, feel the texture of the food, the aroma that fills the kitchen, the vibration of care we put into each ingredient, we can turn this act into a meditation, an offering to our being. The secret lies in intention. When washing dishes, we can simply think of the task as something boring and obligatory, or we can allow ourselves to be present, feeling the water, the soap, and realizing how these small moments of care can also be moments of inner purification. The higher self does not manifest only in great epiphanies, but in small acts done with an open heart and full attention. It is the quality of our presence that makes all the difference. Imagine the simple act of watering a plant. We can just pour water on the soil and move on to the next task, or we can allow ourselves to feel the life of that plant, notice its leaves, its color, the way it leans towards the light. We can see that, in a way, we are caring for an expression of life as connected to the whole as we are. This attention transforms the experience into something meaningful, into a moment of connection with the higher self, a reminder that, just like that plant, we need light, water, and care. Walking can also be a spiritual practice. By putting our feet on the ground, feeling each step, breathing with intention, we can turn a simple walk into a journey of reconnection with ourselves. Each step becomes a dialogue with the earth, a moment of gratitude for life, for the body that carries us, for the air that sustains us. Being present in each step is a way of honoring our higher self, of bringing spirituality into the most mundane things. Our daily lives are full of opportunities for awakening. We can find the sacred in each action if we are willing to look with new eyes. When we align our daily tasks with the intention of living with purpose, of being present, we allow the higher self to fully manifest in our lives. Each action, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to express our essence, to live from our highest self. In this way, spirituality ceases to be something distant or separate from ordinary life and becomes the very fabric that sustains each moment, each breath, each simple gesture. Creativity is an open door to our higher self, a bridge that connects us to what is most authentic and profound within us. When we allow our creativity to manifest, Whether by painting a picture, dancing freely, or writing a simple phrase, we are giving voice to our essence. Creativity doesn't need to be perfect, nor should it be judged. It is a flow, a direct expression of our inner self, a way of dialoguing with the life that transcends us. Imagine someone painting without the concern of making something good or technically perfect. The paint flows on the canvas and the colors blend, creating unexpected forms. There are no expectations, no limits, just the free movement of the soul, which chooses to express itself through color. It is in this state of surrender, where the ego dissolves and we let go of the fear of being judged, that the higher self manifests itself most clearly. Creating is a way of connecting with what transcends the rational, of letting our essence shine without restrictions. Likewise, dancing can be a powerful channel of spiritual expression. When we let the body move to the sound of music without thinking about the steps or rhythm, we allow the body to be a tool for connecting with the greater energy that surrounds us. Each movement becomes an act of celebration, a way to release repressed emotions and reconnect with the essential joy that lives within us. Dance teaches us to let go of control, to let the body speak for itself, and to experience the ecstasy of simply being. Creative expression is a path without expectations, where there is no right or wrong, just the freedom to discover and reinvent ourselves at every moment. When we create, we are not just producing something tangible. We are exploring the unknown within us, giving voice to what we often cannot say with common words. This connection with our creativity is a way of diving into our essence, of becoming vulnerable and open, of accessing that inner place where the higher self manifests in all its power. Creative freedom invites us to let go of fear, to experiment without worrying about results. It is a practice of acceptance of who we are, of our imperfections, and of everything that makes our expression unique. When we allow ourselves to create just for the experience, we free ourselves from the chains of the mind and access the authenticity of our higher self, that part of us that desires to manifest without blocks, without censorship. Thus, each of us can find our own creative path. Whether painting, writing, cooking, dancing, or singing, the medium does not matter. What matters is the intention to open up, to allow our essence to reveal itself. By getting in touch with our creativity, we are getting in touch with our truth, and consequently opening a window to our higher self. Life is, after all, a great work in constant creation, and each creative act is an opportunity to be co-authors of our own spiritual journey. On our journey toward the higher self, we inevitably encounter internal barriers, fears, limiting beliefs, and habits that trap us. These barriers form throughout life, fed by past experiences, external expectations, and the narratives we choose to repeat about who we are and what we can achieve. But what we need to remember is that these obstacles are not insurmountable walls. They are challenges to be overcome, and each carries an opportunity for growth. Imagine yourself walking through a dense forest, where the light barely penetrates the treetops. The path seems confusing and full of thorns, and the feeling of being lost arises from time to time. This forest is a metaphor for the internal challenges we face, the fears that paralyze us, the insecurities that tell us we are not good enough, the inner voices that make us believe we do not deserve happiness. These are shadows that project themselves on our path, but they only have power over us as long as we do not face them head-on. However, as we continue the journey, something extraordinary happens. Gradually, the forest begins to clear. We see small rays of light indicating a way out, a possible path. So too is the process of facing and overcoming our inner barriers. As we allow ourselves to see clearly what impedes us, we begin to notice that there is always a way out, a clearing within our reach. The first step is recognizing that fears do not define who we are, they are just part of our experience, something we need to integrate and transcend. One of the most powerful tools for overcoming these barriers is conscious breathing. The simple act of breathing deeply, allowing the air to flow through our body, brings us back to the present and connects us with the now. Breathing is a direct link to the higher self, as it takes us away from the restless mind and brings us into the body, into the awareness of the present moment. When focused on breathing, there is no room for fear or worries about the past or future. It is a moment of stillness where we can find clarity and strength. Another effective practice is meditation, where we allow ourselves to observe our thoughts without identifying with them. Meditating is like sitting by a river and watching the leaves float in the current. Each leaf is a thought, an emotion, or a belief that appears. We simply observe without trying to grasp, without judging. Gradually, we realize that we are not the leaves nor the river, we are the presence that observes, that witnesses. This recognition allows us to let go of what no longer serves us and embrace our potential. Positive affirmations are another tool that can help us reprogram our mind. Limiting beliefs are like seeds that were planted long ago, and by repeating positive and encouraging thoughts, we are planting new seeds. I am enough. I deserve to be happy. I am capable of overcoming my challenges. These are not just words. They are expressions that, repeated with intention, begin to transform the roots of our beliefs, paving the way for the manifestation of the higher self in our lives. Overcoming internal barriers is not an instantaneous process but rather a continuous walk toward clarity. It is accepting that there will be days when the forest seems too dense, but there will also be moments when we see the light clearly and feel the peace of being in harmony with ourselves. Every time we face our fears, every time we choose to listen to the higher self instead of the voice of fear, we take a step towards the clearing, that clearing where we can be free, authentic, and fully connected to our true essence. Nature is a perfect reflection of our own essence. It is always present, always in motion, yet immersed in a serenity that transcends haste. By connecting with nature, we can access wisdom that is already within us but that we often forget. Nature is a mirror for our soul, a reminder that we are part of something much greater, something vast and deeply connected. Imagine mountains with their solid bases and peaks touching the sky. They remind us of the importance of having firm roots, of being anchored in reality while keeping our gaze upwards, towards the transcendent. Rivers, with their constant flow, teach about surrender, about going with the flow of life without resistance, allowing our emotions like water to move freely, cleansing and renewing everything in their path. And forests, with their ancient trees, speak of resilience and patience, of how growth takes time, but if we allow it, our roots can find nourishment and strength even in the most arid soil. Our higher self finds deep resonance when we are amidst nature. Walking consciously on a trail, feeling our steps on the ground, smelling the earth, hearing the sounds around us. Every breath connects us to what is pure and essential. Nature does not judge or demand anything in return. It simply is. And when we allow ourselves to be in it, simply being, we begin to see that we too can embrace this simplicity in our lives. We can learn to just be, without needing to prove ourselves, without seeking external validation. Meditating outdoors is a practice that puts us in direct contact with this infinite source of wisdom. Sitting next to a tree, feeling the wind touch our skin, hearing the birds sing, all of this brings us to the present. In nature, we realize that we are not separate from the whole. We are part of it. The same element that runs in the river's waters runs in our veins. The same sun that warms the earth warms our spirit. This feeling of unity is the essence of the higher self. The realization that we are all connected, not only to each other but to every form of life, to every aspect of this vast universe. There is deep peace that can be accessed when we simply allow ourselves to observe nature. The flight of a bird, the blooming of a flower, the movement of leaves in the wind, these everyday little miracles remind us that life is made of cycles, of movement, of balance. Just as nature goes through its own seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, we too go through moments of growth, fruition, introspection, and renewal. And by honoring these cycles in our lives, we reconnect with the natural rhythm of existence, in harmony with our higher self. Nature is, therefore, a portal, a gateway that leads us back to what is most authentic and essential within us. It invites us to abandon masks, worries, and fears and to remember that, at our core, we are as free as the wind, as resilient as the trees, and as infinite as the starry sky itself. By connecting with it, we access our own wisdom, that inner voice that guides us and that, like nature, is serene, loving, and full of truth. The higher self is also a path of healing, a journey of integration in which we heal our emotional wounds and align body, mind, and spirit. This process of healing does not happen all at once. It is a slow and compassionate movement that requires us to look within, to embrace our pain, and to transform it into learning. It's like a wound that, though initially tender, gradually begins to heal until, finally, what remains is a scar, a mark that tells a story but no longer hurts. On our spiritual journey, many of us carry emotional burdens, unresolved hurts, resentments, losses that haven't been accepted. These burdens prevent us from accessing the fullness of our higher self because they create barriers that disconnect us from our essence. However, the higher self invites us to see this pain with eyes of acceptance, as necessary parts of our journey. Each pain, each difficult moment, is an opportunity to look at what needs to be healed, to learn a lesson that only this experience could teach us. Visualize the image of a person releasing balloons into the sky. Each balloon represents a difficult emotion: sadness, anger, regret. Releasing these balloons is a metaphor for letting go of what no longer serves us, allowing these emotions to go their way without resistance, without attachment. This symbolic act of letting go is a fundamental step in the process of emotional healing. The higher self reminds us that we do not need to carry this pain forever. We can honor it, learn from it, and then let it go, making room for the new, for peace, and for growth. Placing a hand on the heart is a simple act, but one that carries transformative power. It is a way to reconnect with our center, to feel the pulse of life within us, and to remember that despite difficulties, we are alive, and that in itself is a miracle. When we allow ourselves to be kind to ourselves, when we look at our pain with compassion instead of judgment, we are allowing the higher self to manifest. This part of us knows that healing does not come from resistance but from acceptance. The loving embrace of every part of ourselves, even those we sometimes prefer to ignore. Healing is also a process of integration. Body, mind, and spirit are not separate entities. They are aspects of a single being. When we are emotionally wounded, it reflects in our body: tension, pain, illness. Similarly, when we are spiritually disconnected, our mind becomes a whirlwind of anxious thoughts and endless worries. Healing involves uniting all these parts, allowing each one to be heard and acknowledged. Meditating, practicing mindful movements like yoga, or simply breathing deeply are ways to bring harmony and balance to this whole, allowing the higher self to manifest in its entirety. The path of healing is a path of courage. It takes courage to look at our own wounds, to revisit them, and to let time and compassion do their work. And along this process, we come to understand that the higher self is not distant or indifferent to our pain. It is present, holding our hand, reminding us that every tear is part of our story and that by integrating our pain, we transform into something stronger, more beautiful, and truer. Thus, by accepting the healing process as part of our journey, we begin to see our wounds not as signs of weakness but as marks of our growth. Every challenge overcome, every pain embraced, is a step towards our deepest essence, an opportunity to become more whole, more connected, more conscious. The higher self is always there, encouraging us to keep going, to believe that behind every dark night, there is always a dawn waiting to bathe us in its light. The spiritual journey, like everything in life, follows natural cycles, rhythms that reflect the seasons of the year. There is a time to be born, a time to grow, a time to harvest, and a time to rest and reflect. Just as nature follows this flow with trust and serenity, we too can learn to respect life's cycles, embracing each phase with acceptance and wisdom. The higher self invites us to honor these rhythms, recognizing that each one has its beauty and purpose. Imagine spring, where life bursts forth abundantly and full of energy. This is the phase where new ideas emerge, where enthusiasm drives us to plant the seeds of our dreams and intentions. It is the time to open ourselves to new possibilities, to allow ourselves to dream and get excited about what could be. The higher self reminds us that spring is an essential phase for creativity and the birth of new projects, where we can connect with our potential and let ourselves be carried away by the energy of creation. After spring comes summer, and with it growth and action. In summer, the seeds planted begin to develop, and this is the moment to dedicate energy, to nurture what we wish to see flourish. This is the time for conscious effort, where we put our intention and focus on what we want to manifest. Just as the sun shines intensely in summer, we too are invited to shine, to expose ourselves, to share our ideas, and to connect with the world in a more open and expansive way. Then comes autumn, a season of harvest. It is the moment when the fruits are ready, when we can see the results of our efforts and be grateful for the blessings received. Autumn is a period of gratitude and reflection. The higher self reminds us that it is important to stop and acknowledge what has been achieved, to appreciate the lessons learned and the fruits we have harvested, whether big or small. It is also the moment to let go of what has already fulfilled its role. Just as trees shed their leaves, so new ones can grow in the future. Finally, winter arrives, a phase of introspection, withdrawal, and rest. Nature retreats, many animals hibernate, and there is a stillness that invites us to look within. This is the moment when the higher self calls us to internalize, to connect deeply with our essence, to rest from external actions, and allow the internal waters to calm. In spiritual winter, we give space for the new to emerge when the cycle begins again. This time of retreat is as important as any other because it is during it that we find clarity, recharge our energy, and prepare ourselves to be reborn. By honoring these cycles, we find deeper balance in our journey. We realize that we do not need to always be producing, always growing. There are moments for action and moments for rest, for contemplation, and simply being. Just as the earth needs a time of rest to regenerate before giving new fruits, we too need to respect our rhythms, learn to listen to what our body, mind, and spirit need at each moment. The higher self, like nature itself, knows these cycles and guides us through them with patience and wisdom. By respecting these rhythms, we manage to live in greater harmony, without forcing ourselves beyond what is necessary and without resisting when it is time to move forward. Spirituality is not a straight line but a constant cycle of learning, action, reflection, and renewal. And by accepting and surrendering to this natural flow, we discover that each season, each moment, carries within it the opportunity to connect more deeply with who we truly are. In recent years, science has walked alongside spirituality, revealing how ancient practices like meditation and mindfulness can transform our minds, bringing us closer and closer to our higher selves. It is fascinating to see how, through the study of the brain and neuroscience, we can understand the profound changes that occur when we cultivate a spiritual connection. These discoveries show us that our potential for transformation is physically present within us, waiting to be activated. When we meditate, the brain literally transforms. Scientific studies show that regular meditation increases the density of gray matter in regions associated with learning, memory, and emotional control. This means that when we sit in silence and dedicate a few minutes to focus on our breath or a mantra, we are creating new neural connections, changing how we perceive life, how we react to emotions, and how we deal with challenges. The spiritual practice becomes a way to reprogram our mind, to create space for the higher self to manifest more consistently and consciously. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to shape and transform itself throughout life, something modern science has shown to be a fascinating truth. This means we are not stuck in behavior patterns or automatic reactions. We can change, we can grow, we can free ourselves from the conditioning that limits us. Every time we choose to breathe consciously instead of reacting impulsively, every time we choose forgiveness over anger, we are, in fact, strengthening the neural connections that help us live in tune with the higher self. Thus, science and spirituality meet in the idea that the higher self is not a distant abstraction but a part of us that can be accessed and nurtured through practices that cultivate presence and well-being. The state of flow, for example, that moment when we are so absorbed in an activity that we lose track of time and feel fully alive, is a reflection of the connection with the higher self. When we are in a state of flow, our mind is focused, our body is aligned, and our essence expresses itself freely and authentically. This state, which we often achieve during meditation, during creation, or even in physical activities, is a direct manifestation of our spiritual potential. Spiritual practices like meditation not only help us connect with our essence but also have tangible benefits that science can measure. They reduce cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and increase the production of serotonin and dopamine, which are responsible for feelings of well-being and happiness. By cultivating these practices, we are not only promoting a sense of inner peace but also creating an environment within ourselves that facilitates access to our higher self, that facilitates living from a higher level of consciousness. This union between science and spirituality reminds us that we are more than just a physical body, more than just thoughts. We are a complex and beautiful combination of body, mind, and spirit, and each of these aspects influences the other. When we dedicate time to take care of our inner world, to meditate, to breathe, to connect with what is essential, we are also taking care of our body, our emotions, and our mental health. The higher self is not an abstract idea but an experience that can be felt and lived in everyday life when we learn to care for ourselves on all levels. Thus, science provides us with a deeper understanding of how spiritual practices transform us. And spirituality, in turn, shows us that science is not cold or distant from our inner experience but an ally that helps us perceive the depth of what we are capable of achieving. When we unite these two perspectives, we discover that the potential to connect with the higher self is present in each of us, waiting to be explored and lived, bringing healing, clarity, and a renewed sense of purpose and unity. At the end of the journey, when the sun sets and everything calms down, we come to the understanding that the higher self is our true home, a place of peace, acceptance, and unconditional love. It is to this place that all the paths of our life lead us, no matter how many detours we have to take. The higher self is the vast horizon we contemplate, a promise that there is always more to discover, more to explore within ourselves. And at the same time, it is the stillness we find in the simple act of being present. This journey of self-discovery is continuous, a learning process that never ends. Every experience, every challenge, and every victory are steps that bring us ever closer to this divine essence that dwells within us. And it is important to remember that there is no final destination or fixed point to reach. The beauty lies precisely in the journey, in the constant coming and going, in the expanding and retracting, like the breath of life itself. Our higher self is, therefore, a constant and loving presence, always welcoming us, no matter how many times we stray from the path. When we look within and recognize the higher self, we are giving ourselves permission to be who we truly are, not defined by fears, judgments, or limitations, but as pure expressions of love and light. We recognize that behind every mistake there is a lesson, behind every pain there is healing, and that no matter where we are always on our way home. The higher self is our guide and our dwelling, the place where we are received with kindness, where we are accepted as a whole with all our shadows and lights. The path home can sometimes seem long or even lonely, but in reality we are never alone. Every step we take toward this deeper connection brings us closer not only to ourselves but also to others, to the world, to the universe. It is a journey that teaches us to be compassionate, to see beauty in every detail, to understand that life is not a race to a specific destination, but a dance where each movement has a purpose. Each step is an opportunity to feel and grow. May each of us continue to tread this path with the certainty that the higher self is always there, available, waiting for a moment of silence, an instant of openness to manifest itself. The search for this connection is, in fact, the return home, a home that has never left us, that is always waiting for us. This home is our heart, our spirit, our very essence. And as we move forward, we will discover that in every breath, in every small act of consciousness, we are already touching this sacred place. May we all learn to live in harmony with our higher self, realizing that it is not distant but present in every smile, in every tear, in every act of love we choose to perform. May this journey be lived with courage, with compassion, and, above all, with a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to be, to discover ourselves, and to express ourselves. And now, for you who have followed along to this point and felt touched by these words, like this video and subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you help this message reach more people, spread this light, and inspire more journeys of growth and connection with the higher self. May we continue to grow together and share the beauty of living in tune with our true essence. Thank you for being here and for being part of this journey.